Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, Fins fans from across the nation, welcome to episode 2 of Phin-Addict Fury with your host, Larry K. Got some good feedback from the last episode, so we figured we put out another one quite quickly. Plus, we got some news, right? We have the news out of the Chris Grier and Brian Flores press conference regarding our quarterback situation. We got some maybe on par, maybe a little bigger news with our OC, Chan Gailey, announcing his retirement from the NFL. So we got a lot to talk about. I'm going to give the position groups from this year grades. I'm going to discuss potential replacements for Chan Gailey. I am also going to make some playoff predictions for the 6 wildcard games we have this weekend. So let's get right into it. Let's get started. First things first, my debut video was breaking down and discussing my thoughts on Tua Tagovailoa. Could he handle it? Is he the quarterback of the future? These were the things we were thinking about, we were discussing. I'm not going to rehash those arguments. If you want to hear my thoughts on that, go to episode 1. Before we get into it, by the way, click subscribe if you're digging the videos. Just go ahead and smash the subscribe button, like it, share it. Let's get this thing rolling. All right, all that stuff being said, the biggest news to come out of the Chris Grier, Brian Flores press conference by far, was the fact that Chris Grier reiterated, and he did it more than once if you watch the presser, he reiterated more than once that Tua Tagovailoa is their starting quarterback. They are happy with his progress, and they are going to continue to declare him the starter. Now, I said at the end of the last video, I said that despite what I thought about the eye test with Tua and the fact that I didn't see him looking like, as advertised, as this generational franchise-changing talent, I said that if Grier and Flores 100%, they were all in with Tua, then I would trust their judgment. Because they have shown me, especially this year, that they seem to be going in the right direction. They know how to build their team. Flores seems to be a very good coach. They seem to know what they're doing. So if they're telling me that they're all in with Tua, Tua's their guy, then I'm going to go ahead and rock with them on that. Because I don't see him in practice every day. I'm not the one who has a grand plan. I'm not an NFL football coach, so I'm going to defer to them. So I have no choice but to trust Flores and Grier until they show us otherwise. So for right now, we're going to roll with Tua. Now, to the caveat to that, there is a caveat. The caveat to that is when Grier did say that they were going to proceed with Tua as the starter, the one caveat is when they did ask follow-up questions, and one of the follow-up questions was, do you, including the quarterback competition, see yourself drafting players? And are you willing to definitively say that you're not going to draft a quarterback with the 3 pick or in the first round? Grier was non-committal. And you would expect that from this regime, right? They're non-committal. They're not going to show their hand. So you'd expect that. But he made a long-winded effort to declare that, look, they're looking for competition. Competition makes everybody better. Competition at every position makes everybody better. And they always welcome and want to create and bring in competition. And then he caught himself one more time after saying that a few times and said, look, but Tua's our starter. What does that tell me? That tells me that they are going to continue to have competition at the quarterback position. But that doesn't seem to indicate, as of now, that they're willing to go out and use a third rounder on a quarterback. Or, not a third rounder, the third pick overall on a quarterback. Or, use a first rounder on a quarterback. It looks like the way they're talking, that's not the direction they're thinking of going. But we can never rule anything out. That being said, when we talk about the quarterback position and we talk about the regime, the coaches, and the front office wanting to bring in competition and wanting to continue competition at the quarterback position, you get the sense, right, and you should have got that sense already, that Fitzmagic is not going to be with the team. He's not going to be the guy. And why do I say that? Is he an excellent backup quarterback, maybe the best in the league? Yes. Is he a great mentor for Tua? Yes. Is he almost like a quasi-coach for Tua? Yes. Is he a security blanket to go in if Tua's not getting it done? Yes. So are all those reasons that you might want Fitz? Yes. But it's also reasons why you don't want Fitz, right? If you are going to commit to Tua, then having a guy who's that popular in the locker room, who the players almost count on to come in if Tua's not getting it done, who, you know, the locker room might have a certain level of trust and allegiance to, not necessarily as against Tua, but just in general, you're probably not going to want to keep him there because it's not real competition, right? I mean, because there wasn't real competition this year. There were games and weeks where it seemed Fitz was the better choice and Tua still got the start. So you're not going to have a real competition with Fitz there. Fitz is just a placeholder. I think they want real competition, right? So I think this tells us overall that whoever the quarterback is going to be, it's probably not going to be Fitz. So then who's it going to be? I think if they're not going to use the third round, look, if they use a high pick on a quarterback, then the competition is real. And that means that the two guys are battling it out basically from the first offseason as to who's going to take the franchise over. I think what I got from the press conference, the way Greer talked about it, is I think they believe in the development of Tua. I think they think that Tua is their future right now, and they're at least going to give him the time to develop. So they're not going to go high on a draft pick and really bring in true, you know, do or die competition to the first offseason for whose franchise it's going to be. I don't see that. And I don't see them keeping somebody like Fitz, nor do I see them going the Cowboys route with the Andy Dalton signing, where it's another over-the-hill type vet who can give you some minutes in the event of an actual injury. But, you know, he's done. He's not really much more than a mentor. If you're going to do that, why wouldn't you just keep Fitz? I don't think they're going to go that route. I think what they're going to do is they may either draft a kid in the mid-rounds, a kid they like who could be developmental, who perhaps they hit on. So perhaps it's still the same scenario I talked about in the first video where maybe he does wind up being the fallback option and taking the reins if Tua doesn't pan out overall. But more likely, he turns out to be a solid backup quarterback for the future. And with that, it's kind of a win-win because there could be a true competition, especially because Tua's only in his second year and needs time to develop. And if you get a solid backup, now you have a QB tandem, a QB room going forward. And we've had that in our history, and that happens with a lot of good teams. And we could pursue that. And that could be the way they go. The other direction I see them possibly going is I could see them signing or trading for a younger QB, maybe with some legitimate potential to unseat Tua, but not likely. Somebody who isn't quite at Tua's caliber or his level of hype or his level of buzz, but bring him in to see what happens. You know, not somebody in the Josh Rosen mold, but somebody a couple years off. You know, maybe somebody who thought they were going to be a star and then they wound up kind of settling into a backup role somewhere. Somebody who's kind of worn out their welcome, or there's coaching staff changes somewhere. I'm not saying him. But somebody akin to maybe a Darnold. Now, Darnold's going to go somewhere to be a starting quarterback, maybe, probably. But somebody in that vein who's, you know, the regime's changing. Chances are they're not going to stick with him, but he's shown some flashes. He's still young. He could either be a career backup or a career starter. Bring a guy like that in to compete with Tua. I'm not saying Darnold specifically, and I don't know that we're going to do a trade with the Jets. I'm just saying somebody in that vein, right? I could see it. So we'll see. But my criticisms and my analysis of Tua is well documented now, right? You know what it is. It's out there. It's in stone almost, as much as stone could be these days with the internet. It's in my first episode of Phin-Addict Fury. So that'll never change, right? Meaning My analysis initially is what it is. If I turn out to be right down the road, that's bad news for the Dolphins. But I'm hoping that I'm wrong. And as of now, I'm not going to harp on it, and I'm not going to sit here for the next whole season or the whole offseason and just gripe about the fact that I thought maybe they should try to draft another kid and see, to hedge their bets. I'm going to rock with Flores. I'm going to rock with Greer. Not as a blind fan. So I promise you that. We got into training camp reports, and hopefully I'll get down to training camp this summer and report from there for you guys. But we'll see. But I'll get training camp reports, and as the season commences, and game by game and week by week, I will be fair. I'm not a fanboy. I'm not going to sit around with aqua-colored glasses. I'm not going to do it. My glasses are see-through. They're clear. I see everything for what it is. I will always be honest about it. But for now, I'm not going to just harp on what I think about Tua. I'm going to go with the coaching staff and hope he progresses and hope he gets better and hope he is the guy to lead us to the promised land, because it's been too long, guys. It's been too damn long. So that being said, where do we go in the draft? I'll just briefly touch on it. I'll do a much bigger draft analysis and show when the draft actually comes around in the spring. But look, I think you can go a couple directions, right? You can go wide receiver with the first pick, the number 3. You could trade down from the number 3, get a bunch of picks. You could go Sewell. And you could solidify that O-line. I'll talk about the O-line when I talk about the grades in a little bit. But you could solidify that O-line with Sewell. You could do a lot of things. So we have a lot of needs. You can go. You're not going to go. I don't think you're going to go pass rusher with the number 3 if you keep it. Our needs on offense are just too deep. So I think it's either going to be receiver or O-line, or you're going to trade down out of that pick. That's my prediction as of right now. And we'll get into a more, deep analysis, for lack of a better term, when we get to the draft. But let's move right along. Let's get into my grades for the year by position group. Let's start with coaches. And when I bring up coaches, I'm not going to break them down individually, but I'm just going to say coaching overall. And I'll talk about, the elements of the coaches as we go into it. Look, I'll give coaching an A minus. Why do I give it an A minus instead of an A plus? Why do I give it an A minus instead of an A? Well, this is why. Look, coaching was great this year. And I say that because it's not just week by week, and it's not just this season. It's the development of young players. It's the holding together of a locker room through some periods of adversity and through what could have spiraled into a quarterback controversy that obviously never did. Those elements go into it. And this staff overall, right, top to bottom, from Flores all the way down to ball boys, this staff did a great job of facilitating camaraderie, developing young talent, getting the most out of the guys for most of the season. And that's a big reason why they're in the A range in general. Flores and his selection of a defensive coordinator was absolutely excellent. And I think a lot of us, when it started, the season started anyway, we were skeptical. We were skeptical of it, to be honest, because we said, wow, internal, you weren't great last year. It's an internal hire. You could have got a bigger name so you could focus on the head coaching job, et cetera, et cetera. At the end of the day, Boyer turned out to be a great hire. I mean, he got a lot of the guys. Schematically, he was good. And I don't know how much of the defense Flores contributed. I don't know how much Flores was behind the success of the defense from a schematic standpoint, from a play calling standpoint, and a game planning standpoint. But whether he was involved or not, it worked. If it was Flores and Boyer together, then it worked. That dynamic worked, and it was the right decision. And if it was just Boyer carrying it, then it definitely worked, and it was the right decision. So either way, defensive coaching was great. When you get to the offense, look, we'll talk about Chan. Now, I don't know. I think I'm excited that we're going to see a new offensive coordinator. I think just because Chan was older, I think Chan's offense and his philosophies Fitz just better. He was brought in, I thought, almost to work more with Fitz, or recommended by Fitz at least. I think he brought an element that was good with Fitz's game, but I think we're all probably a little excited that we can move on to a fresh coach for a new quarterback. That being said, look, Chan Gailey, I thought most of the year he was pretty good. from everything from his trick plays to, when he called certain inside-outside runs, even the screens seemed well placed. It didn't seem like every screen was, an Adam Gase coach team. We all have seen that, where every play is 5 yards behind the line of scrimmage and none of them go anywhere. It wasn't like that. I mean, it seemed like he called the reverse to Grant at the right time. He called the slant to Devontae at the right time. He seemed like he had kind of his finger on the pulse until some of the last games with Tua, and we can debate it all we want, whether it was the play calling, whether it was Tua himself. Many people are going to say, and they got a point, that, the play calling, once it opened up, Tua couldn't make the throws or the read, so that's why it was limited. Other people are going to say, look, you should have opened it up anyway. Let him live or die. Let him learn. We're not doing anything with these short little passes. And other people will say that the passes were there downfield and Tua just read the dump-offs. Whatever the case, some of the games towards the end, if we're talking about coaching right now and not quarterbacking, they weren't that good. And so for that reason, that kind of takes it down a notch. And the other reason for the A-, besides just Chan and the offense, is you're grading on the whole season. And the development was great. And the coaching for many of the games was great. But at the end of the day, that last game where it all counted, where it all boiled down, the team showed up and got absolutely embarrassed. They got ran off the field. And you can't give a coaching staff an A+ when that was the end of the season. You could argue even that I could give them a B+ instead of an A- with that performance, but I won't, because we're looking at this as a body of work, and quite frankly, I'm pretty happy with the coaches. So the coaches, that was an A-, and I think it'll improve. I think Boyer and Flores are only going to get better when it comes to the defense and running it. I think the offense, and we'll see what the turnover is, because if you get a new OC, you may wind up with a new, supporting coaches, which is going to be interesting, right? Because that may lead to more turnover, and we'll see how that happens. I like our staff. I hope it doesn't happen too much. We'll see. And by the way, when we discuss that, let's keep in mind that Flores, in the same press conference they committed to Tua, Flores seemed pretty candid. He seemed like he was telling the truth. He seemed straightforward, and he said, I expect my whole staff to be back, and I think you just jinxed me, is what he said to the reporter who asked him the question. So I don't think that Chan leaving was always part of the plan. For whatever reason, Chan made that decision. I think Flores might have kept him, which is interesting. What does that tell us about Flores? What does that tell us about his confidence in Tua? What does that tell us about what we think about the offense in Tua? All those things. Now it's irrelevant, but just something to think about. Let's move right along. I got notes here, guys. That's what I keep glancing down at, so I apologize. But quarterback. I don't know if everybody's going to agree with me here, but quarterback, I have a C+. I have a C+, and I'm taking into account Fitz and Tua. Might sound harsh. I say, well, geez, you give the coaches an A-, you give the quarterbacks a C+. But look, C is adequate. C, not C+. Dead even C is average, normal. Not going to win you championships, but not going to embarrass you and make you the New York Jets. C+. Fitzpatrick had some really good games where he was throwing it all over the field. Fitzmagic type games where he's running it with his head down, going in. Tua had the Arizona game where he looked every bit the part. He had command. Tua had a couple other games where he simply didn't turn the ball over. He simply didn't make bad decisions, and we won the game. And that's all adequate. That's all adequate. But Fitz against the Bills the first time around. Fitz in a couple other games where he wasn't moving the ball. I mean, he was moving the ball, but he wasn't converting. Against the Seahawks, he wasn't getting in the end zone. Where Fitz's efficiency wasn't there. You could say it's Fitzmagic all day. And it's Fitzmagic when he's slinging it all over the field and things are working, things are moving. But when things weren't moving this year, or when Fitz started to throw a couple interceptions, it wasn't that great. Now we put in Tua. And it's funny because now in hindsight, everybody wants to say, well, why'd you put in Tua? Why'd you put Tua in when Fitz had the team at 3-3 and the team was looking great and it was Fitz's team and he was having the year of his life? Well, if you really go back to the time when they decided to put Tua in, your opinion's going to be a little different, and it's going to differ was the word I was looking for. It's going to differ from your opinion back then or your opinion in hindsight. The fact is, when the switch was made, it made sense. Fitz didn't look like he had reached his pinnacle already, and now he's starting to stagnate. And it looked like Tua had behind the ears what it was going to take to kind of manage the game properly for the way the team was playing, and it worked for a while. But then we get on to Tua and the end of the season. I mean, several of the games at the end of the season, including Denver, and then almost every game after that, even the ones we won, Tua was not doing anything above a C plus grade. He wasn't. And so he wasn't killing us. It wasn't an F. It wasn't a D. It wasn't a D plus. It wasn't any of that. It wasn't a C minus. But he didn't do anything to really put us over the edge. And one could argue that, the quarterback play down the stretch might have really been what killed us at the end. We just didn't have the horses on offense, and it originates in the quarterback position. We played good on defense a couple games early on, and then they got ran off the field after they couldn't handle it anymore. They couldn't keep them to 0 the whole game, and our offense wasn't doing anything. So, those couple good performances early in the year, Tua's great performance against Arizona, the Fitzmagic moments we had mixed in, make it a C+, meaning adequate and a little better than adequate. But it's not a B level. It's just not. It wasn't like we had a B level quarter. We didn't have somebody like playing that way. It's not like a Tannehill in Tennessee, where his running back is the main reason they're winning, but he's making big plays, and throwing downfield for sufficient yards. We didn't really have that. So I'll go with C+ on quarterback. Look, I think that's going to get better. I think Tua's going to get better, especially the way that Flores and Greer feel about him. I think he's going to get better. I think we're going to bring in a young competitor that's going to push Tua, and I think our quarterback play is going to go up. I think our O-line is going to get better, which is going to improve the quarterback play, and I think our playmakers at receiver and running back are going to get better, and that's going to improve quarterback play. So just because I'm giving him a C+ now doesn't mean I'm looking so down on the future. Discussing O-line. Let's go to O-line next. C. Giving the O-line a C. You got Karras in there. You got Flowers in there. They looked good. Kinley looks like a beast of a rookie. All right. Hunt looks like a good rookie. Jackson, they look good. At the end of the day, the rookies we had, and Davis came in. He played. Davis. He is what he is. He is what he is. He's a good teammate. He's a solid lineman. He's not going to just get blown up all the time, but he's probably not the long-term answer. We'll see. But, and to be honest, Davis might well be the long-term answer as far as a rotational, situational, plug-and-play backup lineman. I think he'd be great at that, and I think he'd be one of the better ones in the league, honestly. But as a starter, I don't know. Look, we brought in 3 rookies. All 3 rookies had their ups and their downs. I think the future is very, very bright for all 3 of those rookies. Karras, I thought, was a solid role player. Flowers, I thought, was good before he got banged up. It seemed like the O-line early in the season was pretty dominant in pass protection. Just good in pass protection, which I think is part of the reason that led us to start Tua in the first place. I thought they were dominant in pass protection. I thought that was the best pass protection I'd seen as a Dolphins fan in years. We had to suffer through the Philbin and the Gase era with just soft, horrible line play. And I thought that the line play early in the year, especially and specifically, the protection aspect of the pass protection aspect was just very good. I do think that the run game was never that good to begin with from a line standpoint. We weren't ever that great at run blocking. I think that's going to be better. I think we have a high ceiling with that. I think Kinley is a mauler. I think some of those guys have quickness. I think we're going to do much better going forward with the run game. But this year, it never really caught on aside from a few games. And it really depended on the running back. Whatever running back could really feel the hole and slither through it was how we did well on running. Patriots had a horrible run defense, so we did well on them in the second time we played them. I'm not saying the run blocking was pathetic. It was adequate. to an extent, but it wasn't going to get us over the hump. Pass protection early was great, but then as the season wore on, I don't know if it was the quarterback change. I don't know if it was Tua not having the right pocket sense this early in his career. I don't know if it was the competition that we faced. I don't know if it was because guys were banged up. I don't know if it was because the chemistry got switched up when we started switching guys from the right side to the left side and vice versa in different positions due to injuries and mixing guys in there. Dieter getting in there. I don't know. But it regressed, the pass protection. So towards the end of the year, our line was okay. We were giving up some sacks, giving up a lot of rushes, and a lot of rush passes, and our run blocking still wasn't great. So it was a C. Do I think we have great pieces on the O-line right now? Yes. I think we have great pieces on the O-line right now. Do I think we might need to add a piece? Should we add a Sewell in the draft? Maybe. Should we sign another free agent? I don't know. I think these rookies are going to develop, and we can count on that. The free agents like Karras, we got to make a decision on. I think the rookies will continue to develop. I think they'll be solid linemen, if not solid starting all-pro linemen, definitely starting caliber solid role-playing linemen. So I think the future's bright, but it's a C. And you're starting to see a trend. You're going to see a trend with the offense versus the defensive grades. The offensive grades are where they are. We all know we need to improve on offense a lot. That's the aspect that they really got to put work into this offseason. So let's move right along. Running back, B. I give running back a B. Why is so much higher than the line and the quarterback? Running back, here's why. Look, no one running back, in my opinion, stole the show and was an A+ or even a B+ running back themselves. Maybe Gaskin, but look, the sheer fact that we had that running back room, to me, was a B. Gaskin played his heart out, and Gaskin's a good player. And even if you go forward and you say Gaskin's not the starting running back in the future, which he might be, depends what kind of offense they want to run. Even if you say that, he's a player who's going to get snaps for many years for the Miami Dolphins going forward, in my opinion. He's a good player. He catches the ball well. He picks up pass protection well when he has to. He finds the holes. He runs hard. Look, for a guy who's smaller framed, who you would think would have a lot of trouble with first hits, and it's not like he mauls guys and is constantly breaking tackles, but for a guy that small, he breaks a lot of tackles. And he runs with heart, and he pushes the pile. So Gaskin was a pleasant surprise, I'd say. He was a good, solid, above average player for us. There was a couple games he put on his back. He really put the Oakland game on his back. You could give all the credit to Fitz that you want. And Fitz deserves credit. But Gaskin, he was the star of that game. And he even said in the post game that it was the most fun he's ever had in a football game. And it makes sense because he ran that game. That was his game. So he was a star role player for us this year on offense. One of our better offensive players. So you got Gaskin. And then you got Ahmed. Well, Ahmed, to me, emerged. And it's interesting because he went to the same school as Gaskin. They're Huskies from Washington. And another under-the-radar guy who came out and played well. I thought Ahmed had a little more muscle to him. And he was successful in a few games in finding the holes, catching the ball, and going on tearing off some really nice runs. And he's another guy that, you may or may not say he did struggle later in the game. But I liked how we had Gaskin, Ahmed, and you can go with the hot hand. He didn't have the hot hand later in the season, a couple games where Gaskin did, and Gaskin got the play. Oakland specifically, Gaskin got it. That's fine. That's going to happen. That's always going to happen. Some guy's going to have the hot hand. We see it with the Patriots. And if you look at Flores, I'll just say this as a quick aside. One thing interesting about Flores is it seems like he's bringing some certain core philosophies from New England that we used to hate to see, rooting against New England, that we now love to see with Flores. Like, there's always some random backup running back that comes in that you never heard of that all of a sudden just runs all over everybody. Remember, New England always had that. Sony Michel, then it's this one, then it's that one. Always some guy coming in, running all over everybody. Woodhead, we have that now. Like, Ahmed was way down in the depth chart. Then he's like the star of the week. I mean, that was a good running back room. And Breida didn't match the hype. He was signed. He was supposed to be, one of the better running backs on the roster and really maybe make a huge impact. And Breida never got going. He had some decent runs, some decent plays. He never got going, but he wasn't bad. He was fast. I think part of the problem was the crowded running back room without any clearly defined, roles for everybody. I think if there was a more carved out role for each running back, Breida might have got the chance to get going, but it never happened. So I don't know that Breida's in our future because of that, but I thought Breida played serviceably well. He wasn't bad. And then Laird's a good player. I mean, look, I know Laird and Breida had the back-to-back fumbles. I get that, but that was one game. Laird is a good player. He gets the ball. He makes positive plays. He does things right. He's a smart player. I like Laird. I thought Laird was good. So if you take that running back room as a whole, it's a B to me. Now, Howard was a miss. We know that, but they eventually cut him. I think the room is that if we want to get our offense to where our defense was this year, you got to build on something. And right now we have running backs probably one player away from becoming an A. And it's one more bruising, more take control of a game, workhorse, bell cow, running back away from being an A+ unit. We have the nucleus. That's a nice running back room of guys that know how to play roles, that can fill in for each other, that can help carry a game, that can jump in because of injury. It's a nice room. So I like the running backs. I'm giving them a B. We got to add one bell cow player, and then we'll be set at running back, in my opinion. Finally, for the offense, wide receivers. C+. Why the plus? When we were healthy, we still didn't have that burner, right? Preston Williams, he ran fade routes down the field. And he could sometimes bust the defense. But we didn't really have that Kenny Stills player, that Ted Ginn. We didn't have somebody who's going to just blow off the top of the defense and keep them honest, even when we were all healthy. We just didn't have them. So that's already knocking us down a little bit of a notch. Then let's talk about who we actually ended the season with and how it all ended up. We had similar players in Bowden and Perry, and Bowden was the better one, but I think Perry still got promise. But they're similar. They weren't real big, tall guys. They weren't lightning fast guys. They were guys who could find ways to get open, catch the ball, and they were okay. Ford, who I thought Ford, he caught the ball well, like in his first year. I thought he was like an up-and-comer, and then they traded him, and then he came back, and he had a couple nice catches, but he had a lot of drops. So I don't know what's going on there. Again, you got to trust Flores. He traded him initially. He's a role player. Maybe he's back as a deep backup next year. Maybe he's back on the practice squad if that's possible. I don't know. If I'm wrong about the practice squad rule, somebody enlighten me. Comment below. Enlighten me. Devontae Parker had games where you thought he could just take over the game. And then he had games where he kind of disappeared a little. I don't know if that was due to quarterback play or line play or whatever. Or double teams because we had nobody else. I don't know. He's not going to take the top off the defense. We didn't have Albert Wilson this year because of COVID. So, what we ended up with and what we played with for most of the year, C+. They weren't a C. I thought they played a little bit better. They weren't that bad. A little bit better than the O-line, maybe. Maybe not. Maybe I'm grasping at straws, trying to be too technical and too cute with it, Because if you really think about it, are they really better than the O-line? Probably not. Probably about on equal footing. So am I really playing games with the C+C? Maybe. I don't know. Tell me what you think. I don't know. But they need an upgrade. Put it that way, right? I think if you put Parker as the number 2 receiver, or even like a 1A, 1B type situation, where he's this big, tough receiver who can run over the middle, take hits over the middle, jump up and catch the ball at the high point, catch the ball in the end zone. I think he can be a very good number 2, especially if he's not getting double teamed. But you need you need an alpha receiver, a guy who's big and fast, a guy who could really take the top off a defense and just be double teamed, get all the attention like a superstar wide receiver. We need that. And then you need your slot guys back. Grant, as a wideout, he's okay. He has his moments. He's not really a starting caliber or even like a rotational wideout. He's a special teams player. He can come in here or there for gadget plays. He's not. You need the Albert Wilson. So next year, if we get the Albert Wilson back, we get a real dominant alpha receiver, and then we get Parker and maybe then Williams back behind him and Bowden behind him. Now you're elevating. Now you're getting up to that A-B range. We need to upgrade that position. So it was okay. It was another one that was adequate. Not a D, not the worst thing ever. Needs a big upgrade. And maybe I'm too generous because I didn't give anybody a D, so maybe that's the problem with the grading system. I'll work on it. I'll tweak my grading system. First time I've ever really done it. Let me know what you think, guys. We'll see. Last but not least, I was wrong. It wasn't last. Tight ends. Tight ends. A. I love our tight ends. I don't think we could do any better. Shaheen and Smythe are big body, tough guys who can block, maul you on the line, come off the line, run a tough route, run after the catch. They're beasts. And both of them are capable of going to the game at any time, scoring touchdowns, blocking at critical moments. Neither one of them are like the kind of guy you can't put on the field. They're both good. And even when Gesicki was out, they were good. And then Gesicki is a rising superstar in the league, in my opinion. If he gets a little bit better at blocking and Tua gets to the point that Fitz was at where they have great chemistry and he's finding him, and you put receivers on the edges that demand more attention, Gesicki is a star. He's going to be a top 5 tight end in the league catching-wise, by far. And the type of offenses that we're capable of running with blocking tight ends and the receiving tight end is great. I love our tight ends. You don't hear really anybody talking about needing tight ends or that that's a position of interest for us or anything, and we shouldn't. Those 3 guys, I love them. I love them. Let's move to defense. And I spent more time on the offense because that's where we need the most work. Defense, let's move on. And I broke it into bigger groups, so it's not going to take as long. Defensive line. A. I thought they were good. They did their job. You remember, we're playing a 3-4 now. We're not playing a 4-3. So your sacks, your QB pressures, they're not necessarily going to come a lot from the line. It's only 3. Your line is going to be more responsible for, clogging up, taking up linemen, stopping the run, getting the linebackers free to roam, to put pressure, to make plays. And they did that. I think they're a great up-and-coming group. Wilkins was good. Wilkins' personality is good. You can tell the guys like him. He's starting to pan out. The sky's the limit for him. He's got a high ceiling. He's still developing. I thought he came on very good, made good plays. Agba, another name that you hear throughout the broadcast, making plays, getting to the quarterback, stuffing the run, making plays, going for the ball. Just good play. And Wilkins with his hands, he's playing a little offense. He's intercepting the ball. He's picking the ball up and running. He's a good player, man. Then Raekwon Davis, nice pickup, clogging up the middle, doing his job, taking up a couple linemen, playing good. And then that's not even to talk about Seiler. Guy got signed to an extended contract now because he's a good player, lives in a trailer somewhere, another good personality, lunch pail, hard hat guy. Great, and that's what you want on the D-line. That's what you want on all your lines, but especially in a Brian Flores coach defense, you want that on your D-line. You want that lunch pail guy come to work every day, and he's that guy. So all around, very good. I don't know what we're going to do with Gachow. I don't know what we're going to do with him. He was out most of the year, but he was starting to come on too. So, we'll see what happens with Gachow. I just think the room's good. Keep bulking it up because you got to remember, D-line, you got to rotate them. You got to keep them fresh. And defenses tend to be like the best one year and then not so good the next year because teams figure you out. You don't have as much zest. You don't have as many, as much depth, whatever it is. So we got to keep bulking defense up. But it's an A. D-line was great. A. Linebackers. B+. Here's the only reason I didn't give them an A. B+. We don't have yet this guy and the linebacking core. And remember, it's also a 3-4, so you got 4. When you're not running, a nickel or whatnot. You got 4. You need a big-time guy who's flying all over the field. You need somebody who's a sack master. An outside linebacker who's constantly getting to the QB. Actually, Jason Taylor, who was a D-end, He thrived, had couple of his best years as actually an outside linebacker, technically in a 3-4. He was a beast. So they are a very good unit, B+. I think perhaps we might already have our guy who flies all over the field in Van Ginkel. He isn't there yet. He's young. But I think Van Ginkel could be the guy who winds up being that superstar linebacker, flying all over the field, getting sacks. He got multiple sacks in multiple games this year. Not to mention all the other plays he made. I think Van Ginkel could be our future superstar linebacker. But as of now, no one stepped into that role. But they all had good seasons. Van Noy played well. Landon Roberts is the guy who will stuff the hole in certain plays, run first plays. He's in there. He's reading the hole. He's right in that gap. He nails the running back right in that gap. He's a good player. He hits hard. He was good. Baker was good. I liked a lot of his play. He was all over the field. He was a leader on defense. Another really good player. Lawson was good. He was a great addition to the team. He played very good. So he was another person who was just made an impact, made a noticeable impact. So, and even the depth, Gruger Hill, they were good. They were serviceable. I never really lost sleep when somebody went down and they had to plug a linebacker in. They were usually pretty good. So the linebackers, B+. The only thing that'll make them an A, get that dominant name playmaker who just teams fear. They know they're going to play the Miami Dolphins, and that linebacker, in an already good linebacker room, an already good core, that linebacker is dominant. Get that guy, and you're an A. Now, secondary, A. It'd be an A+ if we hadn't got burned by the Bills and somewhat, although it is what it is, a little burned by Arizona. The Bills' last game, I mean, whatever. I'm talking about the first game. And I know Jones was out, I know. But even then in the, secondary though, A. I like the safeties. They're good. Do we have to say anything about X? Do we even have to mention X for you to know what I'm talking about with X? I mean, X, I think 10 interceptions was the most they've had in the NFL since 2007 or something. And I think it was Antonio Cromartie. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think that's what it was. I mean, X is a beast. And then Byron Jones opposite. He wasn't going to get the picks. And I think he only looked a little like he maybe lost a step a tiny bit only because he was opposite X. And X is really coming to his own as maybe one of the best corners in the entire league. Definitely one of the best corners in the entire league. But Jones was still good. And whenever Jones and X played, I mean, it was tough for teams to do anything to us. They were good, man. Really good. And Bobby McCann, look, he got a bad rep from some fans for the last couple of years. Bobby McCann's good, man. Bobby McCann hits hard. He knows how to play. He's not often out of position. He's a leader on the defense. I like Bobby McCann. Eric Rowe, another good role player. He was owned a little bit by Waller, but like Waller's a monster. But he played good. He was serviceable. So they were good. Nick Needham coming in. He was good. Nick Needham, except for the last game, Nick Needham was good. He was developing into a really nice slot corner. And I think he still will be a nice slot corner. Another great draft find by Greer. I thought Needham was good. And so, our safety rooms and all those rooms, I mean, all of our rooms. Brandon Jones, the safety, I thought he showed up in some games and some tapes, and he's young. Brandon Jones will develop. So I liked our secondary a lot. I think we all did. It's not a surprise, A. I'd give him an A+ if they just came through in a couple games. If we were in the playoffs, maybe they get an A+. I know it sounds ridiculous, but they're the best squad on the team. So if we were going to get to the playoffs, maybe they would take us there. But that's an A+ caliber unit. It's an A+ caliber room, I'll tell you that. And they'll get there depending upon the season and the circumstances. Love the secondary. So you can tell, though, with my grades, that the defense is way outpacing the offense. And I think we already know that. So we'll see what happens with the draft, with free agency. We need to upgrade the offense a lot, but we still need to bolster the defense in some places. Can't just think it's going to stay the same. But the defense was a very good unit, and the offense needs a lot of work. And I think we all know that as Fins fans. We all know that. So, look, special teams, we know. Look, special teams is great. Sanders is an absolute beast. One of the best kickers in the league. Happy to have him. Hopefully have him for years to come. Awesome player. Hawk, I don't know. I think Hawk started to lose a step a little bit on punting. And I don't know if we're going to be looking to change punters at some point. The one thing awesome about Hawk and Sanders is they're so good on their trick plays and stuff. They just have a lot of chemistry in that special teams unit. It'd be a shame to see him go. But, look, I think the stats are okay for Hawk. But something, when I was watching the game, seemed like we weren't getting the same stuff out of him that we used to. And our punt game wasn't that great. So we'll see what happens with our punt game. I mean, to give him a grade, special teams is going to get an A-, B+, because, I mean, there were games that they really kept us in. They were good at returning everything else. But the punt game was okay, and then Grant got hurt. So, all right, let's move on. Different part of conversation now. I know it's a little bit of a longer video. Hope you guys like it. If I'm rambling too much and you tune me out, I'll know to keep them shorter next time. But there's a lot to talk about. Look, OC, Chan Gailey, unexpectedly, at least to Flores. I think a lot of us thought he was going to be on his way out. I think a lot of us thought that we were going to go in a different direction. So it's not that surprising to us Fin fans, okay? But he's gone. And I think, look, if we're going to be honest, if we're going to want to progress in the right way, we're going to want to do the right things here, I think we all know that we need an offensive coordinator who's going to develop Tua and grow with Tua. I will say this before. I'm going to bring up some names of some potential OCs. But I'll say this. I think that what we should be looking for as far as philosophy and system is we need a guy who's going to play into Tua's strengths. And it seemed like Tua did the best when he was running an offense that was fast-paced, like a spread offense, no huddle, get it, read it, throw it. Get it, read it, throw it, in rhythm. If that's an RPO, that's perfect. But we need an RPO, fast-paced offense. Now, it's funny because I'm not even the biggest fan of the fad. And I know it works, so who the hell am I to criticize it? But I'm not even the biggest fan, as a fan, of the whole, like, spread them way out, consistent no huddle, always be looking at the sideline for the call, the newfangled way of playing football. I was happy we had Chandler Cox early in the season. I know he got cut later on. I like the fullback. I don't mind the huddle. I don't mind the hard-nosed football. So it's not like me as some giddy kid saying, oh, we need like a fast-paced, no huddle. But I just think it suits Tua better. I just think the fast-paced, no huddle type offense suits Tua better. It seems that he thrives better in that system. It seems that that's his bread and butter, and so we should get an OC who's going to work with Tua and develop Tua utilizing that system. I think that's how we got to go about it. So I think with that in mind, and I'm not even going to break down the offensive philosophy. Some of these guys are going to have that philosophy. Some of these guys aren't. But these are just names. These are names that are potential people that could get the job. Before I even give you the names, here's what I'll say about our future offensive coordinator and my personal preference. Brian Flores is a big personality, and I get that. Brian Flores is a defensive coach. I know that he's technically not a defensive coach because he was in scouting, he was in the front office, he coached offense, he coached defense, all these different things. But at the end of the day, the bulk of his real leadership experience, the bulk of his real strategic, tactical experience is on the defensive side of the ball. And we saw that this year. We saw that bear out in the actual way the team played in the grades and the way the team emphasized what they emphasized in the offseason. He's a defensive guy. Even Chan Gailey is a name. And I will say this with what I think and I hope we get for the offense is, I hope we get a name, big personality guy to run the offense because I think we need it. I think if Flores and Boyer can really emphasize the defense and just hard-nosed playing and all that, and we get a guy on the offense who can really take over, take charge, take the reins, and really delve into the schematic, identity of the offense and really take hold of it and Tua and who he wants in the roster and and who he wants at receiver and what kind of offense he wants to run, as long as it aligns with some of the pieces that we already have, and as long as it aligns overall with Tua and with Flores' overall team philosophy, we should get a guy who can kind of own a room himself, so we can have a tough, predominant, offense to match our defense. That being said, here are some of the names, and these are some of the names that are being thrown around out there. Godsey. Godsey's our current tight ends coach. He was actually the Texans' offensive coordinator from 2015 to 2016. He helped Tua as quarterbacks coach when Robbie Brown, our quarterbacks coach, was actually out with COVID this year. He did spend some time with Tua, and he spent some time as like the quasi-substitute quarterbacks coach. So he has some experience. We know that Flores likes to promote from inside. He does have prior offensive coordinator experience. By all accounts, he's a good coach. So Godsey's one guy to look out for, our current tight ends coach. Then you have Studsville, our running backs coach. He was the 2010 Browns interim head coach. By all accounts, he's a player's coach. The guys like him. He doesn't have a ton of tactical or prior, head coaching experience, except for, what a lot of people don't have is that interim job. But it's not like he's the one you would automatically think would take the next step to be the offensive coordinator. Then again, we've seen Flores do it with Boyer. Who knows? I just don't think Flores is the kind of guy where his head's in offense so much that he could just promote from within, from the running backs or tight ends coach, and have it work out. But we'll see. Let's move on to some of the bigger names. And I'll tell you, out of these names anyway, it'll probably be somebody who I didn't even bring up. Probably be somebody none of us thought of when the day's over. But these are just for fun to throw names out here. Bill O'Brien. Look, before you start saying, what are you talking about? The Texans were horrible. He made horrible decisions. He's abrasive. All those things are true. All those things are true. But him on the Texans was a GM head coach job, which, by the way, while I'm getting all my core football philosophies out there, let me just be real. I am not a fan of the whole head coach / GM thing, or head coach who has ultimate power over all personnel decisions. It never seems to work. It's always some good head coach who succeeded as a head coach because he has good head coach skill set with somebody else's players, then deciding he's such a great head coach that he needs control over all the players. And when does that work? You need to be able to concentrate on your job, which is development of players, game planning, morale, and let somebody else handle the bulk of the analysis, the drafting, the free agent stuff, the contracts. Let somebody else do that. That's just an aside. I don't believe in that. So Bill O'Brien wasn't good at it. We see it with the way the Texans wound up. Good for us. But I get it. That being said, as an offense coordinator, the guy has a decent record. He was the offense coordinator of the Pats in 2011, which, if you remember, is a year that he really didn't have Tom Brady for a lot of it. And they were second in yards. They were third in scoring that year. So he wasn't bad that year at all. And he has that experience. And that's not to even talk about his experience at Penn State. His experience at Penn State was notable too. So he's the kind of guy that I think is an alpha personality for offensive coordinator. Now, does he get along with Flores? Is he Flores' kind of guy? I don't know. But Bill O'Brien's a big name to watch out for. I don't think it's going to happen. But it's something that's thrown out there. It's a guy who had elevated himself all the way up to head coach / GM who might be available to be offensive coordinator. I don't know. Now, can he work with Tua? Is that the system that he understands? Is he the kind of personality? I don't know. Just a name. Here's a name that I actually would like to see here. This is the guy I'm actually rooting for to be our next offensive coordinator, to be honest with you. Anthony Lynn. Anthony Lynn, recently fired from the Chargers. I actually thought that was somewhat surprising. I think that makes the Chargers one of the best coaching destinations now with Herbert there and everything else. But he was unexpectedly, in my opinion, fired from the Chargers. I think he's a good coach. He actually interviewed with Miami before they ultimately gave the job to Adam Gase back in the day. So he wanted the job at some point, at least as a head coach. His teams play physical. They're not these finesse offenses. They're physical offenses. And if you look, you got to have some level of finesse in terms of a fast-paced, no-huddle, rhythmic offense for Tua, I already said. But even if you're implementing that, you're still going to want to be physical, right? I never want to go back to those Gase, Philbin teams that were always thrown around the line. Everything was so finesse-oriented that it relied on these screens and dashing around. It never really worked for us. So I don't want to do that again. But you want somebody who can work with Tua in that fast-paced offense, but still be gritty, still be tough, still be physical. And we have personnel that are physical, gritty, and tough. And most importantly, our head coach and the philosophy of this team seems to be going the direction of physical. And Anthony Lynn has that. But he's also got a big personality and he's well respected. And he probably welcomed the challenge of coaching up a young quarterback in Tua, since he lost the ability to do that with Herbert, who his team picked last year. And now he doesn't get that opportunity. I'm sure he would love the opportunity to coach a different young quarterback and see who wins that race at the end of the day. I hope it's the Fins. He was the assistant head coach with the Bills in 15 through 16. And he was an offensive coach. So, I think the biggest thing with Lynn is, A, does he want that job? Does he have opportunities to be a head coach somewhere else, which he might, in the pros or in college? So does he even want the job? B, does his philosophy line up with what we need from an OC in order to shepherd Tua the right direction? And C, and probably most importantly, or at least equally as important, does his personality and his philosophy mesh with Flores? Because he seems like a younger guy too, and he seems like he's got a lot of fire. Does that mesh with Flores? I think it does. I think Flores has said that he met him before, he liked him. Boyer's young too. Boyer has fire, and they get along. So I think Lynn could be the best hire we could make. But we'll see how the news develops. I hope that we just get an OC who has a bigger personality, notoriety, and is ready and willing to take over that offense and also take over the development of Tua, because that's the direction we're going. The other thought, of course, is Caldwell. Okay, Jim Caldwell. Now, he was with the team, remember, as assistant head coach, and then he unfortunately got sick, had cancer, but I believe he's recovered now. He's older. But it seemed like Flores, he brought in Chan Gailey, he brought in Caldwell initially when he first got the job. Maybe he wants that older mentor-type coach around, and maybe somebody like that would be good at developing a Tua. I mean, he was good with Peyton Manning. Maybe he'd be good at taking the reins. We know he was a head coach. We know he's a good offensive-minded coach. I could see Caldwell getting the job, too, even though he's much older. I don't know that he'd even want it. I would go more with Lynn if I had the choice, but let's see where everything goes. Those are my thoughts on potential OCs. Let's see where everything goes. Real quick, before we wrap up, some playoff picks. Hold me to it. I'm going to talk about, I'll be podcasting around during the playoffs. So let's see if I get it right. I don't think there's much debate this week for whatever reason. I think most of the home favorite teams are going to win. Colts at Bills. I think the Bills are going to win. Colts had a pretty decent season. They're showing decent, they can fight, they can play, but the Bills are just, I think the Bills are probably the best team in the league right now. I think they're probably even better than the Chiefs. We'll see how this week goes. I know the Chiefs are going to show up after the bye and play hard, so never too soon to, maybe a little too soon to speak, but I think the Bills are just, they're peaking at the right time, and they're just a very, very good team. And I don't see how the Colts, despite the fact that they've had a pretty solid season, are going to match up with the Bills, especially because they're going to be home in Orchard Park, New York. And the fans are going to be, I know it's not going to be a full stadium, but the fans out of there are going to be loud because they haven't been there all season and they're passionate. And this is the first playoff home game in a long time for the Bills. A long time. And I think the Bills really want this. I think they, not just this game, I think they want it all. And I don't blame them. You got to strike while the iron's hot, and I'm going with Bills. Ravens at Titans. This is a close one. And everybody says you don't want to play the Ravens, and I agree. You never want to play the Ravens. They're a perennial playoff contender. They've always got a good defense. They're always tough. So, do the Titans want to play the Ravens? I don't know. Probably not. But here's my thing. The Titans, their running game's ridiculous. Tannehill's playing good. They're a tough team. They're at home. I say this could go either way, especially because the Titans' defense hasn't looked that great. But I'm still going to give this one to the Titans. I think they want another crack at the championship game. I think they belong there. I would not be surprised, though, out of all my picks today, if that was the one I was wrong on. I could see the Ravens winning that game because Titans aren't peaking at the right time. Nonetheless, I'll still give them the benefit of the doubt. I'm still going to put the Titans to win that game. Browns at Steelers. Another close one, but I'm going with the Steelers. At the end of the day, Bitonio, their star guard, is out with the COVID situation. Stefanski's out with COVID, so they don't have a head coach on the sidelines. Steelers let him in, so they're obviously not scared. The Steelers are well rested. Steelers aren't great. I don't think the Steelers are going to go deep into the playoffs, but the Steelers, I think, are going to beat the Browns. It sucks for the Browns. All this time to get there, and they're there. And then they have this nonsense COVID situation. I don't even think they've practiced two times this week because of COVID and shutting down their facilities. So I don't know how good the Browns are going to do. And I think the Steelers are going to be ready. Steelers are at home. They've been playing who the Dolphins pick, why they might pick them, my predictions for who they're going to pick, all of those things. So I'm looking forward to that. That's the next thing we'll probably come out with. Although, no, I'll probably have some podcasts around the playoffs and the Super Bowl just to do these predictions and whatnot. They might not be as long-winded as this one, but just to talk about the playoffs and other things. So I thank you guys for joining me again. Again, hit the subscribe button, share the podcast, get other friends to join it. Look forward to a long time hanging with you guys, talking Fins. Hope you enjoyed the grades and everything today. I know there's a lot to disagree with, so go ahead and post your disagreements, your agreements, whatever below. Look forward to talking to you guys again soon. Fins up. Later.